Good morning, everybody. Thank you for tuning in for Uzin EJ Welch seminar here today. We're going to be talking about our shower systems and focusing in on a handful of products. You have myself and Jared Lockwood going to be presenting today. We're going to give a few more minutes here for everybody to jump on, but thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time today.
Here we go.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started, Jared. Uzin offers more, guys. We really do try to make it as easy as possible for our contractors, distributors, everyone involved with products, making their life easier and everything faster. My name is Nick Derr. I'm the Technical Services Manager for Tile and Stone. There's my contact information if you do need to reach out to me. I've been in the tile and stone world for about 20 years. Worked at a few other manufacturers, distribution as a commercial contractor in my previous life. I've been able to call Uzin home for the last about 8 months now, and am really excited about the products we have in the tile and stone range and everything that we have coming as well. Jared, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sorry, I was muted. So, hey, I've been in the flooring industry about 20 years. I have a background in ceramic installation, and I've been with Uzin for about 5 years. So I cover northern Indiana, Michigan, and northern Ohio.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Uzin. We are a global company based in Ulm, Germany. We've been around for almost 100 years, in the US for about 15. We have manufacturing in Dover, Delaware, and Germany, and we're so excited to announce that we are building a plant in Waco, Texas that we have, hopefully will be open in next year. So today we're going to focus on a handful of our products. And this by no means is everything we have, but it is a great start. We're going to focus on building a traditional 3-piece shower. And I'm say 3-piece, it's a 3-piece drain. We're going to be referencing TCNA manual B421, what we call a divot method. And we'll be focused on the Uzin PE360 Plus primer, the NC182 sloping mortar, low slump patch, the HS100, and then we'll focus on some of our thin sets at the end, mainly our CX30. I don't know if I was muted that whole time. I apologize. So we're going to focus on all those products, guys. We're going to go through the drain there. And Jared?
Yeah, so first thing we're going to touch on is the PE360 Plus. So this is an acrylic primer just for absorbent surfaces. Normally we're using this over the surface of concrete or gypcrete. In this particular instance, we're going to be direct bonding our NC182 to the substrate. So I know that's a little bit different than a lot of tile installers are used to. They're used to using a mud mix, and they have a pre-slope and then a pan liner, and then they're going to do their mud mix and stuff on top of that. So in this particular instance, we're direct bonding. So we need to give Nick a hard time here. I know he's not traditionally from the floor prep industry, but you don't just pour the primer on the floor. So generally the rule with the 360 Plus primer, as with most of our other, all of our other acrylic primers, are we want a thin uniform coat. And typically we're going to achieve that by putting that into a paint pan and then only getting enough material so that we don't end up with excessive puddling or drips or runs on the concrete down below. So you can tell Nick's a tile guy. He just needs a little help with the priming skills. So just a thin uniform coat, and this is going to dry in about a half an hour and be ready for our prep. So this is a non-reemulsifiable primer, so that means that after it's dry, you won't, if you get water on the surface of it, it won't reemulsify. So here we're going to start. We're going to start by doing the different parts of the 3-part drain, and this method is going to be a little bit different. You're going to see once we start applying the mud and the waterproofing, that's different than a traditional pre-slope and pan liner. So anything to add there, Nick?
No, I think you have it. The 3-piece drain is what we see on most commercial job sites and residential. So it's pretty standard practices these days.
Okay, so the mud we're going to use is going to be called NC182. This is a fast, no depth limitation, sloping compound. So it's low slump. You're going to have very limited work time with it. So Nick took a particular.
Sorry, Jared. When I pause the video, it seems to turn off our microphone. So you just got cut off.
Well, I just ended up muted. So Nick has a slightly different approach than I would normally take. Since this is such a fast setting compound, what I would normally do is I would normally create a level line around the perimeter, and then I'm gonna just go and do the perimeter to that level line and only do about 2 inches wide around the perimeter. And then I would do the same thing around the drain. See, because the difference between this and a traditional mud cement mix is you're only going to have about 20 to 25 minutes of working time with this product before it's completely set up, and you're not gonna be able to get it work it anymore. So like I would consider you should really do it in 2 stages. You should get your drain height around your drain done, and then you should get your perimeter done, and then you should screed the center section from that. So Nick is going around the perimeter here, which is a good move. It's just his shower pan is smaller than most traditional shower pans, so it's easier for him to get it done in the required amount of time. I just think anybody working with this product doing a full shower pan, you need to do it in 2 stages, or you're going to have nothing but problems getting it. Yeah, you're going to just be frustrated with the performance of the product. Now, the product's going to set up really fast, so doing it in 2 stages, it's not like you have an extra, 72 hours or whatever you're going to have to wait after that second coat. This product is going to be ready to apply your waterproofing membrane in about 2 hours at this depth. So it's just going to be a little bit different. It's really great for fast tracking, but it's going to require a little bit different working process than a traditional sand cement mix.
Absolutely. And I want to point out, guys, that I'm doing this in a more tile traditional method. So I am doing a 1/4 inch per foot. I have roughly 12 inches going there. So it's only a 1/4 inch from the edge to where the finished tile to the top of the drain would be to set this. And that was hard to portray in a video on this. So one thing that I want to point out and make sure everybody understands, traditional 4-to-1 sand cement mix that we use in shower pans requires 72 hours before I can then put a topically applied waterproofing membrane on this. So in a lot of instances, tile guys have to do the mud pan and wait 3 days before they come back and actually finish the work. So in this method, we're able to keep that moving and be there in about 2 hours, which is just a really phenomenal way to fast track a job site. And if we do the things that Jared talked about in creating our screed lines, we can really fast track this. You could have one guy prepping all multiple showers in a hospital or in a multifamily setting, and then somebody coming back in and doing the screed. And by the time they're done, they're turning around and starting to waterproof each one of these showers. And we'll go through that full process. But about have the screed done here, and then this was mixed at the low water range. This is something we can mix at different water ranges, so you can have a looser mix or a stiffer mix. I went stiff to build the screeds, and then I have to go a little looser to actually fill in the rest of this.
Yeah, it's also important to note that this product doesn't have any depth limitations. So unlike a sand cement mix where you typically have to start at 3/4 of an inch and then you work your way up from there, this you can actually use even with an integrated bonding flange, and it'll maintain its 4,300 psi even at 1/8 of an inch. So it allows you to keep a much lower profile for your perimeter because you don't have a certain depth that you have, thickness that you have to have for it to meet that compressive strength for the mud bed. So just allows you to do lower profile style shower bed. Yeah, shower beds.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. With traditional mortar beds, you almost need to have 1.25 inch thickness to meet the limitations of those 4-to-1 mixes. So here you can see I mixed it up quite a bit looser, so it'll be a lot easier to work with and have a idea of being about 1 inch above the flange here when I start to shape and slope this. And again, I'm doing this in a more traditional tile method. Most of our floor covering guys are probably going to approach it a little differently, as Jared stated. And we'd be happy to get on site with any of your contractors, any of your guys to walk them through this if you walk into a situation where you need a fast track shower mortar bed.
Yeah, and another point about the 182, it has a really unique texture to it, especially when you mix it up a little bit thinner. And it starts to stiffen up if you're not working with it. So like if you put it in place and then let it sit for about 5 minutes, it's gonna really stiffen up on you. But if you continue to work it, you're gonna be able to continue to work it for much longer. So that allows it to like stiffen up on you, and then you can strike it smooth like you would with a traditional mud bed. So it's also really low slump, so it's going to hold where you want it to, just like a mud bed would. But it is going to feel a little bit stickier on the edge of the trowel because it has some polymers in it. It has a much finer aggregate than a traditional sand cement mix.
Yeah, and if we're talking about guys that are used to 4-to-1, I would take 4 or 5 bags out to them and work with them a little bit to make sure they understand what they're getting themselves into. This is a different product than traditional tile guys are used to, but it definitely has the ability to solve a lot of problems on a job site that tile guys wait a long time for. Typically, like I said, 72 hours. So here I use that screed as my level line around the back. I've sloped it now 1/4 inch per foot towards that drain. I'm going to finish smoothing it out, and then you'll see one of the benefits of this product coming up here when we start cutting around the drain itself. I do have to say you can get this really nice and smooth and look very, very nice for a shower pan.
We're just enjoying your work now, Nick.
Glad somebody does.
Enjoying watching the tile guy at work. Okay, so now here Nick's cutting the drain out. So the main advantage of this no slump product is you're going to be able to do this after just a few minutes. So after about 10 minutes, you'd be ready to cut this drain out and then smooth your edges out to prepare for your waterproofing.
And you really can shape this mortar. It is awesome to work with in that regard, and it's set in a way already that with a sponge you can really clean up that edge and make it very smooth and an easy transition for the waterproofing membrane to go down onto that flange and meet that properly.
Yeah, but I have actually had a customer that did an entire commercial kitchen and they needed to slope down to 2 drains, and it was a renovation. They ended up using a pallet and a half of this material underneath quarry tile just because it allowed them to go quickly and slope down to their drains.
And again, we can go to almost nothing. So now we're going to move on to the waterproofing portion with our HS100. This is a what we call a liquid applied waterproofing, flexible, ready to use right out of the bucket. Here's the tools we're going to be using, a nice brush, roller. One thing I really do want to point out about the HS100 here, it's in a two coat system, but our buckets are shaped as such that we can put a 12-inch roller cover into the bucket without having to take it out. Our competition really can't do that. So that is a benefit to this product. The viscosity of it is a little thicker than some of our competitors. And so I find it to be something that can easily be troweled, where a lot of our competitive products are going to be a little too thin to do that with. But that also allows it to roll out very nicely on this. And we're going to be looking to get 2 coats. We're going to start with a brush and do our changes of transitions, changes of plane. So all corners, all of those higher impact movement areas where we're going to be doing this. So we're going to end up coating those areas almost 2 or 3 times, and we'll coat the main area two coats minimum. So at least probably about 3 times on the changes of planes and transitions. Again, this is going to dry. First coat in about an hour. Second coat is going to be between an hour and 2 hours to fully cured out and ready to go. And here we're just making sure we get plenty of material in those corners. These are the areas where we see the most failures in products. So we want to really make sure that these changes of plane get addressed and get a lot of material added to them.
Yeah, and as a note, you know, we don't require priming underneath this, but if you're concerned about pinholing and some really absorbent concrete boards will cause some pinholing just because they're super absorbent, right? And it make you have an extra coat of the
Yeah.
waterproofing. The primer is much less expensive, and if you can hit the surface of the concrete board with the primer, it dries faster, and it'll cost you about 6 cents a square foot instead of another, you know, I don't know, 50 cents a square foot for another coat of waterproofing. So it's, you know, it's just a less expensive, faster way to potentially avoid some problems. Not required, and for a lot of substrates, you're not going to see pinholing, but just for super absorbent substrates, it's a way to get improved product performance.
And guys, that's something most tile setters aren't super familiar with in priming properly and why we prime. So that's a great time to educate tile and stone installation companies because they don't understand priming. They understand it a little bit better because of leveling being more prevalent today than it has been, but most of them don't understand the benefit of a primer on most projects. As a former commercial installer, it could have made my life easier a lot of times. Here you can see I just applied some fiberglass mesh. It is not required anything under 1/8 of an inch. Anything over 1/8 of an inch, we're going to require the mesh to go in there, or that we patch that beforehand with thin set or a patch. 182 could even do that and still keep you moving. You see I embedded into the wet HS100, and now I'm rolling back over the top of it. In the tile world, we call this cheap insurance. We do this. A lot of installers do this on every project because of habit. But again, it's not required. John, I saw you ask that question, so I wanted to make sure it's very clear. Not required, but it is a nice, cheap insurance policy. We currently don't have a fiberglass mesh to go in there, but there are plenty of them out there, and we're hoping to add that to our system soon. I also want to add that this is fully compliant to work with the topical sheet membranes like our HydroStop. So these will work together. So you can use our HydroStop seam tape in this area as well, and then just overlap it by 2 inches with the HS100 if you want that. We even have a peel and stick version that is a lot faster than any of our competition. So now that we have the changes of plane done and right around the drain done in that first coat, the one area was with mesh, but again, not required under 1/8 of an inch. We're going to go ahead and roll the main areas. And again, trying to get a nice even coat. I don't want to be able to read through this. We're looking between 15 and 20 wet mills. We're going to show you the wet mill gauge here in a minute. But again, see how easy that roller goes right into that bucket. I don't need a separate tray to work from this bucket. I can go right there. That right there makes life a little easier for the installer, and that makes a happy installer. Again, you can
Yeah, and
see.
an application, I mean, what,
Go ahead,
yeah,
Josh.
yeah, we're just looking for a uniform coat, just a uniform coat. But like Nick said, we don't want to be able to read anything through there. So if for some reason you can read USG concrete board through your waterproofing, you need more waterproofing.
Yeah, in your first coat, you might be able to vaguely see some of that, but your second coat should absolutely block that out completely. We're going to get about 47 square feet per gallon. So a lot of guys are able to kind of measure out what that looks like. So we're going to put that measurement there and make sure that we're hitting those numbers, or we can use a wetness mill gauge, which we'll show you in a second on how that actually works to make sure we're getting enough of the waterproofing applied out there to create that continuous waterproof coat. There's the wetness mill gauge. We're going to be looking between the 14 and the 20 there. It's really hard to see with the camera, not quite focusing in on there, so I apologize. But we'd be happy to demonstrate this live with you and your contractors on a job site, wherever that may be. So now we're going between the two there. I'm going to go ahead and put it up on the wall, and I'm going to move it just ever so slightly, just so I know where it hits. So I'm trying to hit between those two, and then I'm going to lay it out there. And if you can see, there's a little dot there by the big glob, and that shows me that I got my mill coverage. So we were talking about pinholing and priming. That was an example of what those pinholes look like and what we don't want to see. But with real thirsty backer boards, you can see that. Another time we might see that is with moisture in our slab. So if guys get on a mortar bed too soon, not necessarily our product, but a 4-to-1 sand and cement mix, if they get on it too soon, you can see the pinholing and blistering potentially. So with ours, and pinholing is really easy, we're just going to go ahead and get a nice coat over that. And on the second coat, you're not going to have that problem again. But a coat of primer can really help that as well. Again, you'll see me starting and pre-treating the changes of plane again with a nice thick coat before we go back to coat the main areas one more time.
Yeah, and this application is somewhat different than what most tile guys are used to, because the divot method is not very common. So using your roll-on membrane down on the lower part of the two-stage drain is just not very common. We see I've seen all sorts of things done incorrectly, but this is a way that actually meets the plumbing codes and the requirements of the TCNA guidelines. So
Yep.
this is a way that we can do it and make sure, from a liability perspective, everything's covered. Because as we all know, showers are a high liability item, and mold and all the other things that come from a leaky shower are just bad news.
Absolutely. And this is a way to keep our waterproofing as close to the tile surface as possible. And that keeps the most amount of moisture out of our tile assembly. In a traditional shower, we have a coralloy pan that has a pre-slope underneath it. We attach the coralloy pan to that drain body down there. Then we put another layer of mud over the top of it. That mud is always going to have some moisture to it. And if those weep holes in the drain get plugged, that water can actually wick back up the wall. And in that traditional coralloy pan system, a lot of guys weren't doing those properly with a vapor membrane behind the wall, and causing a lot of issues in mold and mildew growth that can happen when that moisture goes. I've had it where moisture actually wicked up the wall 3 feet, and I cut out by the wall or the bottom of the pan, and water ran out of the wall. So here we've put together our 3-piece drain. We're done. I've siliconed the top flange on. I'm going to now lower my drain down to where my tile height is going to be roughly. I'm going to fill that then in with some pea gravel underneath there to keep my weep holes from getting clogged up, which is one of the big things that does happen in these showers. And again, this is a really nice way to do it so we don't have that same issue. See the pea gravel in? I'm going to go ahead and come back with our 182, and I'm going to fill it in real quick. This can be done with thin set as well, but again, 182 is a rapid drying material, so we can keep the job moving.
Yeah, and what's nice is, since the 182 is going to dry in about an hour at this depth, it's gonna really speed up your waterproofing over the top of it. So I mean, a thin set could take hours and hours and hours to dry. You're coming back the next day to put the little coat of waterproofing over the top here. But what's nice with the 182 is it just streamlines the whole process.
I'd like to add that the 182 can be added. We can put some sand in there. We can go 50% weight by volume. So we can do 12.5 pounds of sand into a bag of 182. So for a tile guy, that gives him a little more of that traditional feel than he's had with the 4-to-1 mix. So we can actually extend it out that way too. But HS100, the waterproofing membrane, guys, is also fully approved as a pan liner traditional way. So it can go over a pre-slope in a traditional method as well, not just in this method. I just think that more tile guys are moving to a method like this to keep that waterproofing closer to the surface of the assembly. So here we'll put another 2 coats of the HS100 on around the drain, and we're ready to then start our tile and stone installation. Kind of therapeutic watching this all happen. So here it is all done. You can see this OT drain has some extra weep holes built into it. That makes it a little unique to our other products out there. But that is the main basis of the system. And now we're ready to move on to the actual installation of our tile and stone. Today we did not go into that, but we want to quickly talk about the next steps. The next step is going to be laying out our tile and stone and installation. We keep that extremely simple with our program. We have 3 thin sets. We don't have 25 like some of our other competitors out there. So we make this really simple. CX20 is our day in, day out mortar. It is not an entry-level product. This is a non-sag medium bed mortar that can be used on walls, ceilings with large format tiles. This is what can do about 95% of your day in, day out business. So if you have somebody that just is looking for a good everyday mud, CX20 will do about 95% of what you're going to do. We move up to our CX30. This is going to be a higher polymer content. It's going to be a little faster curing as well. We talk about 24 hours is what contractors kind of work from. And a contractor 24 is if I leave the job site at 3 p.m. and I've worked all day there, at 7 a.m. the next morning, this is 24 hours. That's not how most mortars cure out. One great thing about our CX20 is that it has a pot life of 2.5 hours, an open time of 20 to 30 minutes. That's actually when it's out on the floor. And the time before grouting, it's not a rapid, but it kind of reacts that way. So for walls, I can grout in 6 hours, and for floors, it's going to be about 12 hours. So that's a very fast time frame. And again, that product is a ISO C2TES1, meaning that it actually will give a little more flexibility. So when we have glass, we really like to move into that type of material and some of those things that expand and contract more than a standard porcelain. For jobs, just like we need to fast track, like we did the NC 182, we have the CX33 bi-turbo, and this is going to be our rapid material. This is going to be consistent that they have about 45 minutes of pot life, and it's going to set so they can install the grout in 2.5 hours. A little bit longer on the white, so that's nice when you're working with glass. It's going to be a little more intricate, but with our gray, it's going to be at 2.5 hours. Again, all these come in our 2 colors, white and gray, depending on the job you're going to be working on. And then we have our Uzin extra color grout, and that is going to be our high performance product. That is going to be moving to a 0.7. Right now it's 0.6 with a lot of 0.7 features and benefits. We're able to make it 0.7. So new inventory coming in from Germany is going to be that. You're kind of the first to really get that knowledge out there. So this is a high performance. What's great about it, comes in 2 10-pound bags. We use the finest raw materials, and I mean fine as in the size of the sand in this, in the industry. So really excited to see what you guys think of all these things, and hope that this was a beneficial webinar for you. So again, this is the whole drain assembly. This is what we're trying to achieve. And then our family of products. You know us for our patches, leveling, moisture mitigation. And again, please reach out to us if you have any questions. Jared, you might be on mute again, but thank you all. If you have any questions, concerns, please reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We want to get on site with you and your contractors, make sure they're being successful with our products.
Yeah, and as always, feel free to contact your local reps as well. They're very helpful, and they'll be able to get out there on those job sites with you.
Awesome, guys. Gary or Jeff Crenshaw, do you guys have anything else you'd like to add today?
Thank you, Nick. Can you hear me? This is Gary.
Absolutely, we can hear you, Gary.
Guys, I just wanted to add, if you have any questions, you could type them in the question area, and with all of us on the line right now, we'll be able to answer those easily. If you do not have any questions, we appreciate your time. We know it's, kind of mid-morning, and it's tough to get away from all your customer calls, and we just want to say we really appreciate it. And with us working with Nick and Jeff more, there definitely will be more to come.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much for your time. As Gary put out there, we know it's valuable. Thank you for learning some more. Please let us know if we can help you in any way.
Yep, thanks, guys.
Nick, let's hold tight for about 3 more minutes to see if any questions pop up, and then we can end it then.
Absolutely.
Two more minutes. No, we just want, I appreciate everybody jumping on here, and don't forget, from what Jared said, you could reach out to your local rep. Either myself, for EJ Welch, you actually have 4 at your fingertips. You have myself, you have Jared, you have Scotty, who covers Wisconsin and Iowa, and you now have Josh Freiberg that handles the Lexington and Louisville, Columbus, soon to be Columbus, and Cincinnati location as well. So if you guys need anything from us, please reach out. We can do this same thing in front of your customers. We prefer a job site to do things like this on, but by all means, please reach out to us for help. But looks like we're up. No questions. So oh wait, we do have one question. I'm sorry.
Tile size limitations. We don't have that with our this system or our thin sets. Not exactly sure what you mean by that, but yeah, we don't have tile size limitations with what we just showed you. Our CX30 is excellent for the large thin panel products that are now 5 foot by 11 feet almost in size. So no, we don't have any of those limitations.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that you're asking the difference between 20 and 30, and I'll just tell you, I just had a phone call, a meeting with Jim yesterday with one of his customers, and typically I tell the customers use CX20 on everything, and if they get to a panel installation, from what Nick said, that's pretty much where I switch to CX30. Now it exactly doesn't need to be a panel for big size. Let's say there's a crazy, 48 by 40 and 48 porcelain or something like that that needs to go on a wall. I'm probably going to step up to 30 on that. So anything very large size, I'm going to step up to 30. But what we're seeing typically is a 12 by 24, and CX20 can put that up all day long.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Another one here is, can you create a bundle promo where we see all the materials for a standard shower? Absolutely. I'm not quite sure I fully understand what you're asking there, Robert, but get with your local rep, and we can definitely put something together on that. And we're going to be doing some major updates to our HS100 data sheet that should be coming out in the next few weeks. So we will be more apples to apples with all our competition. We've done some some great internal testing with that product over the last 6 months since I've kind of came aboard.
Yeah, and one more thing about the panel systems and the CX20 versus CX30. I actually had a panel system that went over in Ohio, and I recommended the CX30 to them. They decided to use the CX20, and they just had some problems with it, just from the workability of the product and the no-sag characteristics. So I would, as we start talking about large panel systems, I would definitely steer people to the CX30.
Absolutely. You got a lot better product, a lot more polymer added to it. CX20 is a great material, but it does have limitations when it comes to some of those performance factors. But most of your day in, day out installations will do that. When we get to a little higher end product and stuff, we really want to go. But the tile size limitations, it's a good thin set. If you can get it spread and placed in a reasonable amount of time, it'll work just fine.
Yeah, and I can't say enough about CX33, right? So let's talk about that really fast. You know, CX33 is EJ Welch's most sold thin set. And the reason is because we give you that extended pot life and then that quick dry for grouting. So I didn't realize how horrible the competition was in this category of fast setting thin sets.
Oh yeah, you got to get it out of the bucket in 10 minutes or it sets up on you.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a night and day difference between the CX33 and other rapid set thin sets. You just have so much more bucket time. It creates less stress when you're trying to install the tile.
Yeah, and one more thing to add to that, guys. I had a bag, and I don't recommend this obviously, but we had a 2-year-old bag at our training center because we're not operating schools right now. And I mixed it up against all the competitive rapids I could buy locally, and ours still set exactly in 2.5 hours. And it's not that I place it and I can't move it in 5 to 10 minutes. I still can adjust that tile 10, 15 minutes after I've put it. With most rapids, like Jared just said, it is set. That tile's not moving. We don't have that issue with our CX33. It is an amazing product. And that bag size, 27.5 pounds, is a great working size for most of these applications. Another awesome place to use it's Backsplashes. Guys can get in and out in 1 day versus making it a 2-day process to do a backsplash.
Yeah, and a lot of the rapid sets also have a rougher aggregate to them. The CX33 still has a super fine aggregate that's similar to the CX30 in the aggregate size, and it's just a really nice working experience with the CX33.
For sure, for sure. So we're saying if you want to have some really quick success, I would find out in your markets who is purchasing rapid thin sets, and we call that product the game changer. And you will see that extremely fast.
So we got another question, guys. If we would level on a concrete surface, would NC 150 be a good option, or could we use Fast Track for 172 and larger installs? Yeah, with the size of tiles today, we absolutely recommend that we level first. You'll save yourself as an installer a lot of time adjusting tiles, and you'll have that flat surface. Which we require. And with large format, that's 15 inches on any edge of the tile is considered large format these days. And we have to have an 1/8 and 10 for floor flatness level. I don't see concrete floors ever meeting that. I'm sure Jared and Gary would agree as well.
Yeah, and one of the things you run into with when you're doing a tile application over the leveler, the time frame for you to be able to install your thin set over the top of a like 150 is much shorter than it would be over to install moisture sensitive goods. So the difference between 150 and 172 is not that great when we're talking about a ceramic style installation where you're using a thin set. So, you might be able to get away with using the 150 or the 170 and not have to go to the 172 on a fast track, just because, shortly after it's walkable, you'll be able to apply the thin set to it. So now if you need to install an anti-fracture or waterproofing membrane, For fast track, you might want to do the 172 because that will have the lower moisture content that will allow you to apply that acrylic over the top much faster.
Great questions, Robert and John. Thank you so much for adding to the conversation. Really appreciate it. Well, guys, I think we've answered all the questions that have popped up. Again, we appreciate you all taking the time today. We know it's asking a lot, and we really appreciate it and can't wait to get out in front of you guys and your customers. So at that, guys, I'm gonna close it down unless you got anything else.
We had a question come up with steam showers.
Oh, I
just
didn't
popped
see that.
up there. Yeah. So with steam showers, we're gonna want to use a product called HS200, which is a cementitious waterproofing membrane, or we're gonna want to use our sheet membrane. So those would be the two options. The HS100 is not rated for steam showers.
Well, and then that's not necessarily true. The biggest problem with steam showers is, do they have a vapor membrane behind the backer board? And in a lot of times today, the tile installer is not installing the backer board. We walk into it, especially commercially speaking, it's already done. So we don't know if that membrane's back there and tied in properly to a Corloy pan, or if we have to build it that way. So the most reasonable option in my mind is to use our waterproofing hydrostop. It is rated for a steam shower. We know it's that vapor membrane, and it's that out of the box. There is no questions about it. That installs with thin set, and it goes up kind of like wallpaper does, but that can still be a fast track installation as well.
Yeah, and with the steam showers, we're going to want to use the CX33 or the CX30, not the CX20. Just like we would treat it just like a submerged application as well. The CX33 or CX30,
Yep.
you use that thin set.
Awesome questions. All right. Well, again, without any more questions, thank you so much. We appreciate it. If you have further questions that we didn't answer or you didn't want to ask in front of everybody, please reach out to your local rep or ourselves. We're happy to work with you and answer anything you have. Thank you so much for the time today, guys. We know it's hard to get away, but increasing your knowledge base will never hurt you when we're trying to get out there and sell.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Jared.
Absolutely. Let's see.